He walks through the world with an emotional radar sharper than most people's entire intuition, seeing pain before it's spoken, sensing motives before they surface, reading tension before anyone else notices it exists. Yet the paradox is this: the Sigma male is deeply aware of emotions, but he rarely feels them the way others do. He observes them. He decodes them. He disassembles them like pieces on a chessboard. But he doesn't sink into them. And that distance, that psychological detachment, is what creates the mysterious force people call his dark empathy. He understands everything: the wounds people hide, the thoughts they deny, the patterns that control them. But he processes it through logic, not emotional absorption. It's not coldness, it's survival. His mind learned long ago that feeling everything leads to collapse, so he developed a rare skill: emotional perception without emotional vulnerability. While most drown in the waves of human behavior, he stands on the shore, watching the entire storm with total clarity. People think he doesn't care. They think he's unbothered, detached, untouchable. But the truth is darker and far more complex. He cares enough to understand, but not enough to be controlled. He sees the truth in people, but he no longer carries it. And that ability to read without absorbing, to understand without surrendering, is what makes him both misunderstood and deeply powerful. If you've ever felt this paradox inside yourself, the ability to sense everything but remain untouched by it, then you already know why Sigma men walk a path few can follow. Before you go, tell me in the comments, do you relate more to seeing emotions or feeling them? And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Silent Wise, where we break down the psychology the world is too afraid to talk about. He reads emotions with precision, but processes them intellectually instead of emotionally. He walks into a room and instantly catches the subtle tremor in someone's voice, the flicker of discomfort in an eye, the tiny hesitation before a smile. These micro-signals paint a full psychological map in his mind, invisible to everyone else but crystal clear to him. Yet while others would feel the emotional charge behind these cues, he doesn't let it touch him. Instead, he analyzes it like data sorting intention from impulse, truth from performance, insecurity from manipulation. What others interpret through feeling, he interprets through pattern recognition, instinct sharpened into a quiet weapon. In conversations, he listens with an awareness most people never reach. He notices emotional shifts the way a seasoned strategist notices battlefield movements, calmly, methodically, without being pulled into the chaos. Empathy for him isn't a flood. It's a controlled stream that he directs with intention. He understands fear, hurt, jealousy, admiration, and deceit, not because he absorbs them, but because he observes them with almost scientific detachment. It's why people confess things around him they wouldn't tell their closest friends. He makes them feel seen, yet he never loses himself inside their emotions. He sees everything, but feels only what he chooses. This creates a strange paradox. He understands people better than they understand themselves, but he remains untouched by the emotional weight of what he perceives. His heart stays guarded even as his mind sees into the hearts of others. This separation between comprehension and emotional reaction is what gives him an edge. He is never overwhelmed, never swayed, never lost in someone else's storm. He navigates human behavior like an architect studying blueprints, objective, precise, unshaken. And because he feels without collapsing into feeling, he becomes the rare kind of empath who understands the darkness in others without being consumed by it. He understands people deeply, yet remains detached to protect his inner world. He can read a person's emotional landscape with uncanny precision, the contradictions they hide, the wounds they minimize, the desires they can't fully articulate. A single conversation gives him enough insight to understand where someone has been and what shaped them.
But instead of stepping into their world and absorbing their chaos, he maintains a deliberate distance. His intuition is a lens, not a doorway, allowing him to see without entering. He offers understanding without surrendering his emotional equilibrium, observing people with a calm clarity that feels almost supernatural.
That detachment isn't coldness, it's preservation. He learned early that stepping too deeply into others' emotions can drown a person who feels as intensely as he does. So he keeps a quiet barrier in place, not to disconnect, but to survive. Inside that barrier lies a world he protects fiercely, his peace, his identity, his direction, his inner logic. He doesn't let people cross into that space unless they've proven they can handle the depth, the silence, and the loyalty that come with it. Most cannot. So he stays just far enough away to understand them without being consumed by them. It's a boundary built from scars, disguised as indifference. This balance between deep perception and controlled distance is what makes him so enigmatic. People feel seen by him, but never fully see him back. They sense his insight, his quiet empathy, his ability to understand what they don't verbalize, and yet they can't quite access the emotional core behind his eyes. He remains in the world, but not fully of it, close yet unreachable. And that mystery is not an accident, it is his armor. His detachment is the shield that allows him to navigate emotional storms without losing himself, protecting the inner world he values more than any connection he might gain. He senses manipulation instantly, but stays silent to observe the full pattern. The moment someone tries to twist a narrative, hide an agenda, or subtly shift blame, he feels it like a temperature change in the room. His intuition catches micro-hesitations, tone shifts, strategic pauses, signals most people never notice. But instead of reacting, confronting, or calling it out, he chooses silence. That silence is not confusion or hesitation, it's data collection. He watches how far the person will go, how many layers of deceit they're willing to stack, and what they truly want. His stillness turns the manipulator's performance into a confession. Every word they add, every justification they invent, every deflection they attempt reveals more than they realize. Remaining quiet gives him the advantage of strategy over emotion. While the other person grows bolder, thinking they've succeeded in their manipulation, he maps the entire psychological landscape. He identifies their triggers, their methods, their vulnerabilities. He notices what they avoid, what they exaggerate, and what they fear being exposed. By the time the manipulator thinks they've gained control, he has already seen the entire blueprint of their intentions. Silence becomes his scalpel sharp, precise, and devastatingly effective. It protects him from emotional entanglement while granting him complete clarity. And when he finally acts, it's decisive and irreversible. He doesn't explode, negotiate, or argue. He simply withdraws, sets a boundary, shifts his alignment, or removes the person from his life entirely. The manipulator never sees it coming because they mistook his quiet for ignorance. In reality, his silence was the space where he confirmed everything he needed to know. By the time he steps away, he holds the full truth, while they're left confronting the uncomfortable reality. He understood their intentions long before they understood his. He mirrors others subtly, unlocking the truths they try to hide. When he steps into a conversation, he doesn't impose his energy, he reflects theirs. If someone speaks with confidence, he mirrors that calm certainty. If they shift nervously, he mirrors quiet restraint. This subtle psychological technique disarms people without them ever noticing. They feel seen, understood, and oddly safe, which makes them relax their guard. As they settle into the comfort of being matched, their masks loosen. Their real motives start leaking through the cracks, fear disguised as arrogance, jealousy hidden behind humor, insecurity wrapped in charm.
He doesn't push, he doesn't pry. He simply reflects what they offer, and they end up revealing far more than they planned. This mirroring becomes a doorway into the parts of themselves they usually keep locked away. Most people aren't used to someone who listens without interrupting, who observes without judging, who matches their rhythm without competing.
That lack of resistance creates an emotional vacuum they instinctively fill with truth. Secrets slip out in fragments, tones, expressions, contradictions. Confessions emerge indirectly, often unintentionally.
They talk and talk and talk, not realizing that he's extracting insight from every syllable.
It feels natural to them, but it's intentional for him. His subtle reflection becomes a psychological X-ray, revealing the unspoken stories beneath their controlled exterior. And he never breaks the illusion. They walk away thinking they understood him, not realizing he was understanding them. They believe the comfort they felt came from compatibility, when in reality it came from seeing themselves mirrored back with perfect precision. He uses that understanding not to manipulate, but to navigate relationships with clarity. He knows who is genuine, who is dangerous, who is fragile, and who is performing. By mirroring others, he unlocks truths they hide from the world, and sometimes even from themselves. He predicts behavior because he maps emotional dynamics like a strategist, not a feeler. He doesn't react to emotions the way most people do. He analyzes them. Every tone shift, every hesitation, every forced laugh becomes a data point in a psychological blueprint he's constantly updating. While others get swept up in the emotional weather of the moment, he steps outside of it, studying patterns, cycles, and motives with the precision of a strategist. He notices how someone responds when they're challenged, how they behave when they want something, how their mask slips when they're tired. Over time, he builds an internal map of their triggers, fears, desires, and predictable moves. This map allows him to foresee their actions long before they make them, not because he feels what they feel, but because he understands the logic behind emotional behavior. This is why people often think he's intuitive or one step ahead. But it's not magic. It's psychological pattern recognition sharpened by detachment. When someone argues defensively, he already knows whether it's insecurity or guilt driving them. When someone offers kindness, he knows if it's genuine or strategic. When someone withdraws, he knows whether they're hiding something or hoping to be chased. He sees the emotional mechanics behind every interaction, and like a chess player who reads the board 10 moves ahead, he predicts how the game will unfold. It's not empathy in the traditional sense, it's cognitive empathy, the ability to understand emotion without drowning in it. And because he isn't emotionally entangled, his predictions aren't clouded by bias. He doesn't hope, assume, or idealize. He simply observes. This allows him to avoid traps, navigate conflict with precision, and protect himself without appearing defensive. People mistake his calm for indifference, but it's actually clarity, an understanding of human behavior so deep that nothing truly surprises him. He maps the emotional terrain quietly, and by the time others realize what's happening, he's already anticipated their next step. His detachment doesn't make him cold, it makes him accurate, strategic, and nearly impossible to deceive. He feels empathy without absorbing pain, a balance few people can understand. He can sit with someone suffering, hear every tremble in their voice, and understand exactly what they're going through, but he doesn't drown in it. His mind registers their pain with sharp clarity, yet his emotional center remains steady, untouched by the turbulence. This is not coldness, and it's not detachment in the traditional sense. It's a refined emotional discipline. He connects deeply enough to understand, but not deeply enough to be consumed. People often feel strangely safe around him because he doesn't collapse under their weight. Instead, he becomes an anchor, quiet, observant, unshaken.
absorbing the information without absorbing the suffering. This balance gives him a kind of emotional X-ray vision. He can empathize with a person's wounds while simultaneously seeing the patterns that created them. Where others get lost in emotional storms, he studies their shape, their origin, their impact. He listens not only to the pain, but to the story behind it, the childhood memory, the relationship flaw, the insecurity buried beneath bravado. He offers presence, not pity. Insight, not entanglement. He recognizes that taking on someone else's pain doesn't heal them, understanding it does. And his way of understanding is clean, surgical, and quietly powerful. People misinterpret this kind of empathy because they expect emotional connection to look like shared suffering. But he knows that sinking into someone's darkness only multiplies it. He remains steady so the other person has something solid to hold on to. He cares deeply, but he refuses to let that care devour him. This is why people confide in him without realizing why they trust him even when he says little, why his presence feels grounding even in silence. He feels enough to understand, but not enough to break. It's empathy without collapse, compassion without self-destruction, an emotional equilibrium that makes him both mysterious and quietly indispensable. He hides this dark empathy because revealing it would expose how much he truly sees. He moves through the world with eyes that notice everything, every tremor in a voice, every flicker of doubt, every contradiction between what someone says and what they actually feel. But he keeps this perceptiveness hidden beneath a calm, unreadable exterior. If people knew how effortlessly he could read them, how quickly he could uncover motives they haven't admitted even to themselves, they would either fear him or try to manipulate the very ability that protects him. So he lets them underestimate him. He lets them believe he's quiet, distant, hard to read, when in reality he's reading them with alarming depth. His silence becomes a mask that shields his insight, allowing him to navigate human complexity without ever revealing the full scope of his awareness. This hidden empathy gives him a strategic advantage. Because he understands people without announcing it, he watches their stories unfold without interfering. He sees the contradictions they hope no one notices, the insecurities buried under confidence, the resentment behind polite smiles. His dark empathy isn't malicious. It's efficient. It shows him who deserves a place in his life and who doesn't. He protects this ability because once someone knows how much he perceives, the dynamic shifts. They become guarded, performative, defensive. The raw truth he needs to understand them disappears. So he keeps his insight locked behind a composed expression, giving nothing away while absorbing everything. Revealing this depth would expose not only what he sees, but what he refuses to tolerate. It would force people to confront the parts of themselves they've kept hidden in shadows. Most aren't ready for that, and he isn't interested in being their mirror or their judge. So he hides his dark empathy the way a swordsman hides a blade, quietly, deliberately, knowing it gives him power simply by remaining unseen. People think his silence means he's detached or indifferent. But the truth is far more unsettling. He sees them too clearly, and to keep his world in balance, he chooses to let them believe he doesn't. When a man like this steps back into his silence, the world assumes he's simply withdrawn. But you now know better. His quiet is not emptiness. It is strategy, protection, and perception sharpened into something most people will never understand. Behind that calm exterior lives a mind that sees motives before they form and truths before they surface. And the fewer words he uses, the more powerful his presence becomes. If this deeper layer of the Sigma mindset resonates with you, stay with us. Silent Wise is built for those who think in shadows, feel without showing, and move with intention instead of noise. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and step into a community that understands the psychology beneath the silence. Before you go, answer this in the comments. Do you hide your empathy too, or do people already fear how much you see?